But first in the programme tonight, one of the most unusual and controversial schools in the West, and important talks this week about its future. A school that's been called by some councillors a holiday camp for bad boys. Well, it's got its critics all right, and because of the high cost of running it, they argue that it should be closed down altogether. Well, there's no doubt it is expensive. Possibly £300 a week for each pupil is the cost. There are only a few dozen youngsters here. The limit is 78. The pupil-staff ratio is the envy of many state schools, sometimes as low as 4 to 1. But supporters argue it's a cost that's well worth bearing because of the important work that goes on here. Well, all the youngsters who come to this place have been in trouble of one sort or another. And so now, from the Portishead Nautical School overlooking the Bristol Channel, a report from Anne Lucas.
Even though most of these boys have no intention of going to sea, they still start the day with morning muster in the full naval tradition. And lads who've probably been to a selection of penal institutions and failed to settle down take a pride in their immaculate turnout. And they're prepared to take orders.
Front rank, one posted forward, march!
The boys, who are aged between 14 and 17, have been put into local authority care by the courts. Their crimes are usually robbery, taking cars or absconding from institutions. A few are school truants. They're sent to Portishead from all over the country, and the average length of stay at the nautical school is 12 months. The original Formidable was an old sailing man-of-war, and 110 years ago she was anchored off Portishead Pier with about 400 boys on board, most of them being trained for the Royal or Merchant Navy. But eventually the ship fell to pieces, and just over 70 years ago the present school was built. And although it's on dry land, it's still run very much on naval lines. All the boys do maths and English and can choose other subjects, some to CSE or GCE level. But the opportunities outside the classroom are as important, and they're expensive to provide. It costs about £300 a week to keep a boy here. At the moment there are 41 boys and a staff of 32, a ratio that's the envy of many other schools.
What would you say would be the largest number of books in the classroom? You know, you've been down here now for a month or so.
English or
English,
maths.
and what would you say would come second then? English and maths, perhaps?
About a quarter of the boys are training for a career at sea, some of them in Merchant Navy catering. They take their sessions in the school galley seriously and are even prepared to submit to Navy regulations and have tattoos removed from their hands, arms and faces. The nautical school doesn't guarantee a place in the Merchant Navy, but they have an allocation of 18 places a year. They offer training in a whole range of crafts, including engineering, carpentry, painting and decorating. The lessons in seamanship have been important since the original Formidable dropped anchor 110 years ago. 4 boys from the school are working on the rigging of the SS Great Britain in the Bristol docks, where they're putting their splices and knots to the test 70 feet above the deck. There's a strict selection procedure to find boys who will respond to the nautical school's unusual approach, which to the outsider could seem like a soft option after the stricter regimes of other institutions. But, as the school principal explains, this is not the case.
We mustn't lose sight of the fact that although the boys whom you see here are in the main cheerful and happy and getting on with the job, they are here as a punishment insofar as their liberty is restricted, and this is something which occasionally people do lose sight of. It is an expensive business, but I think we must understand that one can't measure the value of a school like this purely in monetary terms. One's got to consider that the majority of the boys here are unable to accept formal education in the normal way. They're unable to accept what society looks for in them, and they're unable to mix in society, to relate with other people in society. And obviously one needs a very high ratio in order, staff to boys, in order to give them the opportunities to understand that authority and adults are not things to be feared or things to be necessarily despised or chucked out of the window. The people are there to help and to take an interest in them.
Sports and adventure training are important. After learning in the school swimming pool, this group have tackled whitewater canoeing on expeditions around Wales and the southwest. Outdoor adventure is just one way the school tries to achieve its aims.
One, to help young people to grow up, which a lot of them need a great deal of help to do. I think this is important. I think also, alongside this, to give them an experience of life which is new to them, which we hope is worthwhile and challenging and interesting. And also, equally as important, is education, which most of these boys are sadly behindhand in for a number of reasons. Well, I think what we aim to establish here is a comfortable living situation, a situation in which boys can feel relaxed and they can feel able to explore and able to learn from their mistakes and able to form useful relationships, not only with staff, but amongst themselves. And we try and build everything on that, whether it's outdoor activities, whether it's the routine of the school or the education side, or anything else that you like to mention. And I should mention also, one of our aims is to help in breaching the gaps in family life which exist with so many of these boys.
For some of the boys, coming to the school is their first experience of 3 meals a day, and most are introduced to many activities they've never tried before, perhaps skills they would have scoffed at before. They're taught according to their individual needs and abilities in a relaxed atmosphere. There's no corporal punishment and minimal security. The usual punishment for misbehaviour is the cancellation of free time at the weekends. They're free to mix with the youngsters of Portishead, and local clubs and organisations are invited to use some of the school's facilities. For the boys, the first few days at the nautical school can be a bit of a shock. Steve, what were you expecting when you first came to the nautical school?
I thought it was going to be all secure and everything. I thought there was going to be a lot of orders going around and bits and pieces. So I thought well, it's a Navy place, and I thought it'd be really secure and a lot of orders going on.
And what's it like really? How have you found it being here?
Well, it's not as hard as everyone thinks it is, because it's only a training ship, and it's really good. You get to learn a lot and everything.
What were you expecting when you first came here? What did you think it would be like?
I thought it'd be run like a ship, but sometimes it is, sometimes it isn't.
What do you want to do when you leave?
Go to sea.
So if you hadn't had a chance to come to the nautical school, what do you think you'd be doing now?
I don't know, running right around the streets, I suppose.
Well, I like polishing my boots because I didn't used to, but I like it now. And marching, when you first come in, it's a bit hard, but you get used to it after a while.
And what about all the discipline and orders and things? I mean, you didn't used to like taking orders before, did you? Why do you like it now?
Well, if you don't take orders, then you don't get things back, do you? Because if you cooperate with them, then they're going to cooperate back with you.
One of the most popular activities is sailing, and the nautical school owns a fleet of dinghies, which are kept at Portishead Dock and in Bristol Docks. Other adventure sports which take the boys out of school are caving and mountain climbing. There are regular visits to the Mendips, the Quantocks and the Black Mountains. The boys achieve a high level of fitness and proficiency, and they learn the importance of teamwork. There are no members of staff in these dinghies, as new boys are taught to sail by their more experienced colleagues. Although academic achievements are not always a priority, the staff do have ways of measuring progress.
I think we're looking for self-confidence. We're looking for an increase of self-esteem. Most of the boys that come here sadly lacking in both of these areas. We're looking for an increased awareness of the needs of other people, awareness that they aren't the only people in the world and that there are other people to be considered, and also signs of motivation to achieve and to see that there is an end goal which they themselves are able to reach if they work for it.
The school dormitories once housed 100 boys each, side by side in hammocks. Now they're divided into units for about 5 boys. Beds and lockers must be kept shipshape, and privacy is limited, though each boy has a key to his own wardrobe for personal possessions. With an institution of this nature, it's hard to measure a success rate.
Assessing success rate is virtually impossible. I think we have to think much more about partial success, about a young person making a move in one direction which we hope is promising and encouraging. Certainly we see boys succeeding as they go through the school, but to say that the school is able to say with confidence that all boys who leave and go out into the community at large, whether it's to work or whether it's to go back to an outdoor school or whatever, to say with certainty that we can say there's 100% success as far as delinquency is concerned would be nonsense. Of course we can't.
The school's very proud of its band. Boys who've never touched a musical instrument in their lives soon pick up the skills of playing and marching, and the band's much in demand for local flower shows, carnivals and displays. For some boys, the feeling that they're helping a cause and the sound of applause and cheers does more for their self-esteem and confidence than anything else they do here at the Nautical School.
So there you are. That's what it's all about. It used to be called in the old days an approved school. Now they call that sort of place a community home. Well, it's not too difficult, I suppose, to see why it's got so many critics. But it isn't without staunch supporters either. But who runs it and who pays the bill for it? Well, it is in fact controlled by Avon County Council, and local councils provide the money to keep it going. Well, only yesterday its future was again discussed. In the end, they decided to postpone a decision, so its future is still in the balance. Well, in the studio with us tonight is Councillor Bill Williams, who's chairman of the Avon Education Authority. What's your view? Do you close it down or do you keep it going?
Well, first of all, let me say this establishment is run and supported by Avon Social Service Committee, of which I was the chairman previously. If you ask me, should we close it down or keep it going, I would go 100% we keep it going.
But why, when it costs so much money and it has so many critics and everyone knows that you're faced with so many cuts in the education service?
Well, for the simple reason, let me make it quite clear, this is a national resource. There's about 6 boys in that school at this moment from Avon, the rest come from the rest of the country. And what we're really doing, we're converting those boys whose past history, as the film has said, have been a liability, and a gross liability, to the whole of the, I'd venture to say, the national economy. We're converting those boys from a liability into an asset. When the boys finish at the National Nautical School, and this year's records go to prove it, they go into jobs either at sea, as you've heard, or into occupations. And I think there's a lot to be learnt from the National Nautical School, how they convert these boys who've totally rejected education at an earlier age.
Yeah, but what do you say to the critics, you see? Because what they say to you is that's all very well and it's very commendable, but just look at the amount of money that it costs. Can we justify that amount of money?
Well, of course we can justify it. It's far better to pay out some money now, at the outset, than to go on paying out hundreds of pounds, thousands of pounds through the life of those boys who are going to be no doubt sent to prison, take up police time, psychiatric wards and all the rest of it in the years to come. They're being converted at this stage into good, tax-paying, honest members of the community.
But you see, when teachers look at the sort of cost that it's taking to keep a youngster at that school, and they realise that the cuts that are taking place in their school and the families who are being called upon to dig deeper into their pockets to actually pay for their children, do you understand the resentment they feel about this place?
I can understand their feelings, but at the same time, what are they paying now to keep people in Hallfield Prison and places like that? You know, it comes out of either your left-hand pocket or your right-hand pocket. It's either tax or it's rates. And let's understand that the majority of the money that's going into the upkeep of the National Nautical School comes from the national pocket.
That being the case, and one final point to you, it only has a limit of 78. If you're going to keep the place going, can you really not do something more with it? Have more youngsters in there?
Well, we can have more youngsters in the establishment if the local authorities will send them there. And that's what it's all about. But if the local authorities don't want to use the establishment, then of course it will close. But the present indications are that it is going to go on, and local authorities want to keep it going.
And you'll put up with all the critics?
I'll take the critics on any time and ask them to come and visit it.
Councillor Bill Williams, thank you very much indeed for being